Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast.
We're high-performance coaches that help service-based professionals and entrepreneurs take their skills to the next level.
70% of entrepreneurs fail, which is why every week we have real talk with real entrepreneurs to help ensure you are not one of them.
We're also the inventors of the Be Rich mindset,
where we rise to mastery,
inspire greatness,
celebrate knowledge,
and help others along the way.
So join us in the lab.
And now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the lab. I'm JB.
I'm the doctor.
For all our listeners joining us for the first time, welcome to the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab, and we appreciate you joining us today. We're going to have a great show, and for those listeners who are coming back again, you must love some pain, but we appreciate you. If you haven't yet, like us, subscribe, follow, give us a 5-star review. We rely on you, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, do all those things.
Do all those things. That sounded pretty good, right? This is actually our third take. We have the unique difference today of all of us, instead of being in a studio, are podcasting here and having this conversation from our homes. So I have the joy of a dog and neighbors and the door knocking that's interrupted us, 3 times now?
Yeah, we're getting good at this intro.
We are. We're getting real good. So it's going to be a great show, though, Doc. Really excited for what we've got lined up today. And feeling really good after what we did last night. The doc and I had a chance to go out and do some networking. We had a lot of fun. Any takeaways, Doc, from being out back in person again, finally, once more?
It was unique so I've been in and out of networking, but more structured events, nothing like we were last night, where it was a nice event where, people were dressed up. I actually put on clothes that were supposed to look like an adult wear. So it's been a while since I've had to do that. So that I think was fun. And it wasn't overcrowded, so we were still able to distance, which was nice. So I felt comfortable, roaming around, which was good. And just being able to talk to people and talk about what we do. Because if I think about it, the last time we really networked in person like that, we weren't really promoting JB and the doctor that way, because it was a couple of years ago.
That just aged me. Just the fact that it was a couple of years ago. Well, it's cool. It's always cool to go out and support a nonprofit and a great association and see some good people, dress up fancy, eat some fancy foods, walk around with a wine glass or two. And, my favorite parts of those are always the chance to hear from different people and meet different people, because it's amazing. You get 50 or 100 people in a space, and it was a very open outdoor space because we're here in sunny South Florida, where it's always nice this time of year. And you got 50 or 100 people with like 100 to 200 stories somehow. You have twice as many stories as you have people. And I don't know how that works, but it always does. So I love that about getting out there and networking. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I was strategic and spoke to like 3 of them.
Well, we've got a saying, right, Doc? If you're going out and you're trying to meet people at a networking event, you don't want to hand out 30 cards, and you don't want to get 30 cards. You probably want to max 2 or 3 really good conversations that you feel like you connect with the people. You can actually follow up with them and take advantage of that networking opportunity. Anything more, and you're probably just spinning your wheels and wasting your time and theirs.
Right, which was a great strategy last night. And I think it's for those listeners who, as we're coming out of COVID, it's a great strategy to begin with, but it's even better strategy if you want to limit your exposure and your comfortability getting back into that. That's a good way to kind of slowly work your way back into that world.
Yeah, it's not bad. We didn't come here today to talk about networking, though, really, did we?
I don't think so.
No. So as always, super excited, because everything we do here is about talking with real professionals, getting some insight, getting some great background, and really excited because we do have an absolutely awesome guest joining us today, Mr. Jan Broders of Jan Broders Coaching. Jan, thanks for joining us in the lab, man.
Thank you so much for having me. Only the intro, like listening to the intro was very enjoyable for me already. So
which take?
Which take? 1, 2, 3. It was increasingly more enjoyable. No, sorry. For me, it already paid off. It was just nice hanging out here.
I feel like I used all my good jokes in the 2 takes we're not using.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All the qualities.
I think it's funny that you think you have good jokes at all.
We'll save it for the special hits end of the year podcast.
Yeah. So Jan, do our listeners the favor of just sharing a little bit about who you are, where you're even coming in from, where are you chatting with us from, and just give them some insight into who you are and what kind of coach you are, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're based in Mallorca, Spain. So probably most listeners are from the US, right? So Mallorca is in the Mediterranean, somewhere between Spain and Italy. So beautiful place, sunny as well, just as it is for you two. And how should we call ourselves? So we have a coaching practice. My wife and I run it together, and we mainly coach professionals, leaders from organizations, entrepreneurs, female leaders, celebrities, people who are very ambitious and high performing in some sense. And that's what's most interesting to us. And I really focus a lot on the area of overwhelm, stress management, burnout prevention. That area is very, very interesting to me, just because of my own personal story, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. And so we work one-on-one with them, but we also go into organizations, small and large. Next week or the week after, I'm going to speak with Mercedes-Benz, for example. Again, I work with them and talk about feelings at the workplace and how we can manage emotions that are, especially during COVID times, might be running wild here and there. So we do a bunch of fun stuff, corporate and individual.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we love having international guests. I think we tend to, about this point, have at least once a month international to join us. It's definitely a different feel than what we get here in the States. And you're right, most of our listeners are in the States, but yeah, the nice thing is most business practices, they're really very global. And a lot of what we talk about translates, and it's universal regardless of the language you're speaking. Or the part of the globe that you're residing in. So that's always a pretty cool thing. Now I got to ask, and this isn't something I've run across before, because, we talk a lot about time management. We talk a lot about balance, the doc and I, and a lot of times we've got family members that we're trying to balance along with the work that we do. Now, you and your wife have a coaching program together. Was that intentional, or did you grow into that? I'm just really curious how you kind of brought that about, and how you managed to that, because it can be tough, I'm sure, to have that overlap.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people ask me that. To me, we haven't really found it tough yet. It really is quite enjoyable, and I enjoy working with her, and it allows us to spend a lot of time together. And we both really understand what the other person's talking to, right? When we talk about work, it's not like, oh, what you sell semiconductors or something, and oh, that's interesting, tell me more about your day. It's more, we're both very, very interested about that line of work, or what we're in the field. And we met each other in that area as well. So we didn't work together right from the start. In the beginning, she was still working for marketing, like in a marketing job for pharmaceuticals. I was working for another coach, like a big coaching company in Germany. And then she joined that company as well, and we worked as employees together for half a year. So before we both quit and then started our own business. But we always spent a lot of time in the whole personal growth world. And in the beginning, where we weren't even a couple yet, sort of like, are we not? We don't know. But we just spent the whole time together talking about those things and sort of discovering our inner worlds and all that. So it's always been a really, really important part of our relationship. And it still is. So to me, it's not weird to be working with her. It's really quite enjoyable, and we're very different too. And I really appreciate what she's good at, because I'm not very good at what she's good at, and vice versa. So I think we're lucky that we see that as a strength, as a benefit, whereas some other couples might be getting at each other because they're so different. But we see the strength of the other person. That makes it easy for us to work with each other. Yeah.
Well, that makes just a ton of sense to the doc. And I mean, first of all, the fact that you share kind of a value system very much, you're very much self-development and growth oriented. You're both kind of from that coaching world, and that brought you together. So that shared value system is huge. But I jokingly say all the time, I've got two marriages, one to my wife and one to the doc. And what makes us unique, I think what is so powerful about the work that we do is that you have two very different perspectives and two very different fields of strength and experience that can build on each other. And just like any team can really offer more than a single individual can. So there's a huge advantage to that from where I sit. And I love hearing that you haven't had a lot of conflict because that can rear its head in any partnership, in any sort of relationship. So I think it speaks pretty highly to the work you do internally, as well as the work you help people out with, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah. And really, it's funny that, we're entrepreneurs, we're coaches and all that, but really our relationship it's very important to us. And not only, oh, I love her so much, she's important to me, but just, I find this relationship itself, I see it really as I don't want to sound cheesy, but as a playground for my personal growth. I really, really value it. And I really want to, grow by her side and through that relationship. So it's, and I think we both see it that way. So it's very important to us to spend a lot of time for the relationship, to go on dates, to spend time together, the two of us. And it's not just, okay, we see each other at the dinner table, but for us, it really is also a vehicle for growth.
So it sounds like you do a good job of just turning off the workday too, though. So, having a good separation.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and even during a date, right? We might be talking about work, but then it doesn't sound like work because it's still this one thing we're so interested in, the inner growth. And then we might be talking about a work project, and then, oh wow, what's coming up for you? Like, what is this triggering or not? Or how can you, whatever the conversation may be, right? But it's not just purely strategy and but it's always coming from the place, okay, how are you growing through this? And so that makes it, doesn't feel like work to me so much. It's more, okay, the thing that I love doing anyway, growing. Yeah.
JB and his wife, JB's wife and I, we're going to start a support group for each other on how to deal with JB. So you got it much better.
Yeah.
I think there will be a lot of members that want to join that group. I could be a lot to handle. There's no doubt about it. Jan, you mentioned something, and I'm sure it's part of your story that you're going to share anyways, but I'm curious. You and your wife were employees, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of the service-based professionals we speak to, they were employees before they began their own journey into building out their business. So kind of what caused the shift from employee to, hey, I'm gonna start running a business here, and I'm gonna start really doing something? Is there something you could share with us around that?
Yeah, it was a few things at the time. It was a strong desire for more freedom, especially time and location. That just was a big thing for me. That I was having an amazing job. Like the last thing that I did was like paradise for any employee, like good pay, good hours, benefits, and all that stuff. But it was just, okay, I had to be in the office, right? And for me, it was this phase in my life. I was like, okay, I want to be here, but I don't want to have to be here. So even though I would probably go almost every day, I would still love to have the choice to not go and just work from anywhere, or be in Spain. At the time we were in Germany, be in Spain and work from there, or whatever. And so that really was a strong desire of mine, the location independence. And as with, I guess, many employees have that feeling at some point, it's like, oh, maybe whatever I'm doing here, like the product I'm creating or the service I'm creating for this company, I'd probably be doing it a little bit differently, or maybe I even have the illusion that I'd be better at it in one way or another. And so sort of this growing dissatisfaction with what we were producing. It's like, oh, I really want to take it somewhere else, and whatever, give it a new twist, but whatever that service or product may be that somebody's creating with the company. And those two things really got us going. And then, yeah, we sort of quit that, and I went part-time first because I thought, okay, let's just knock some stability. But I really was just half-assing both, right? I wasn't really putting much effort into growing a business, but didn't put much effort into the job any longer. It was just for the pay, and that just felt boring after a while. So then it was time to take a complete leap, right? Make a cut and start our own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be a hard feeling, kind of almost like you're in a relationship, but you're not really committed one way or the other. You're in that purgatory space, right? The in between, the endless in between can be a real challenge. How long were you in that space before you kind of fully committed?
The part-time thing, it wasn't very long, 3-4 months or so only. Really, it just realized very quickly, okay, this isn't working. Like it's I'm not honoring either position, the self-employed and neither the employed position, right? It's just neither one is working very well at this point. All right. And then it was an interesting time. We started our thing. And then, at some point, okay, then the whole travel thing started too, because then we got had another coaching training coming up, and it was in Bali, and then we went to Bali, and then we never came back for 3 years. And that's the whole world travel story, right? And yeah, that's one we can dive into that, but yeah.
Hit pause for a second. You went to Bali to speak or do a coaching program, and you just chilled for 3 years. You did
no,
3 years there.
Oh, that would have been nice. No, it felt a little bit like it, but I said,
it sounds like it. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah. So it was okay. Let's go there. Let's stay a few months, because if you go fly to Bali, like this, whatever, 12, 14, 16, I don't even know, 20-hour trip, you might as well stay a little bit, and longer than the program was. It was 10 days, 14 days. And then we sort of noticed, oh, this is really nice here. Let's stay a little bit longer. Okay, let's stay a little bit longer. And then we just continued our travels to Hong Kong, to all other places. And of course, we're growing our business while traveling. We're doing coachings, hosting retreats at different places in the world, and sort of growing our coaching practice online, just like many people were doing the past year and a half or 2 years. And we've been doing this, 7 years ago or 6 years ago, whenever that was. Right? It was really important because, as I said earlier, the location independence was important to me. So it was just, okay, if you want to work with me, it has to be remote. That's just what I do. If you're not comfortable with this, I'm sure you'll find somebody else who you can see in person. But I'm only offering remote work.
Kind of challenges did you have? I mean, going from location to location. So I'm going to go from Bali, and now I'm going to go to Hong Kong, and I'm developing and building a business, but I'm also, all of a sudden I'm entrenched in a totally new culture. It's a whole new area. So were you working locally as well as online at that point? So were you actually like saying, hey, come here to Hong Kong, or if you're here in Hong Kong, we can help you? How'd you kind of make that work?
So we did offer retreats locally, but those people didn't come locally, but they were from an online community or something we had built at the time. And then we said, hey, come to Mallorca, where we live now. We were there, and then we were here for 3 months or so. We said, hey, we're hosting a retreat in Mallorca. If you want to come, that's when it is. Right. And so people came here, and we met them in person. But challenges, of course. I mean, it always sounds very glamorous sitting with your laptop under palm trees and, on the beach. But of course, you want to work, you need to work, and you're not sightseeing all day, and you're constantly figuring out internet. You're constantly figuring out housing and flights and where to go next and visa. And, oh no, we have to leave the country. And who can we bribe to stay longer? Like we did in Bali. And they take your passport for a few days. You're like, oh shit, I hope this works out, whatever they promised. If not, we're in Bali illegally without passports. And Balinese prisons are different to US or German prisons. So I don't want to go there at all. And just things like that. Yeah, of course, there's different challenges on the side. And I would still recommend it. It's just fun to do it. And it's possible to grow an audience that way. But it's not just all sunshine and cocktails. Like it really is. It's challenging logistics wise. Yeah.
Well, sure. and it brings up kind of the point, right? You wanted independence. That was part of the reason you chose to leave employment and really become self-employed and become an entrepreneur. But you gain certain independence. But as a business owner, you also lose certain independence because everything's on you as a business owner. I mean, there's no salary there. You're not getting paid if you don't work.
Yeah, totally. And that's a different feeling too. Like if you go on vacation to, let's say, Hong Kong, and you have a flight back, and you're coming home. There is a home waiting for you, like a roof, shelter, basic need, and there is like next salary next month, and that's a whole different way of traveling. Whereas, as you say, you're in a foreign country, you don't have a flight out, you don't have a home at all. We gave up our home at that time, so we literally had a backpack each, and we didn't own anything anymore. And so there wasn't anything. Oh, if this doesn't work out, we can just sleep there. Well, we could have rented something somewhere, but it was really all quite high stakes, I'd say. But it really had to work out at many places, and you don't want to get stranded somewhere at the end of the world.
Doc, am I the only one here that's like, wow, it takes a lot of confidence to be able to just do that over and over and over again? I mean, I'm sure you get better at it as time goes on. Yeah. But that's got to be incredibly scary, I think, in a lot of people's minds to do what you and your wife did. I mean, that's pretty wild.
I think my big advantage, and still is that I'm quite naive and I don't think things through.
I love that.
Yeah, and that helps me a lot. Because if somebody had told me the stories I would experience, I always said, it sounds nice, but yeah, probably not.
I'm out. Yeah, that's like, good for you, but not for me.
Exactly. And so I was just like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Let's just go. And then, let's continue traveling. And so at the time, like, there's a lot of fun stories, but one thing that we did was to save money, especially in the beginning, it was to do house sittings. And there's like websites online for anybody who wants to do this, and you look after somebody's house or dogs. Like if you go on vacation, and what do you do with your dog, and you have somebody come in and live in your house and look after the pets. And we took advantage of that. We did that, so we didn't have to pay rent for 2 years or so. All we had to pay was flights, a lot of flights, and we're living in nice houses generally, or just like at least not under the bridge. And that also got us to totally different places, and we're just sort of like going with the flow. Hey, let's go to California. That's a cool house. And then next thing, let's go back to Denmark, and then let's go to Scotland. I probably wouldn't have picked Scotland in my world travels. You really want to go to Fiji and stuff like that. But let's go to Scotland, let's go to Switzerland. And that added to the whole, we're just going. We're just, there's a house, let's go there.
I'm starting to feel like I have mismanaged how to live my life, because I've always had to pay rent or a mortgage. I've never lived rent free. And it sure seems like here in sunny South Florida, there's a lot of opportunity here. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you call it naivety, man. I don't know. It sounded like a pretty sharp guy to me.
And I think it's also like a lesson for entrepreneurs that it's just like cutting costs, right? Especially in the beginning, just minimize any fixed costs that you have. And we literally were at zero rent, no car, few clothing, really, because if you have one backpack, you buy a t-shirt, you have to throw one out. There isn't much room to like, let's just go to whatever mall and buy shit. No, you can't. And so that saved a lot of money. And so I think that's a good thing, especially when starting a business, or even after starting, right? Just minimize non-essential costs. And we really perfected that. And still to the day, because we really got so used to the minimalist way of living, even though we're now stationary here in Mallorca, we still have like this super small dresser. How do you call the place where you put your clothes? You like a dresser? Yeah. It's like super, super small. So there's like, maybe I have 6 t-shirts or so, I don't know. And I own maybe 4 shirts. And whenever I buy something, I throw one out. I just don't want, like, we intentionally give us little space for things like that, so we can just amass unnecessary stuff. Yeah.
It's a big way how people are different. I know we talk about like, no, we're all, one size doesn't fit all. Because I could imagine some of our listeners like, that sounds absolutely amazing, just traveling and being on that whim. And I could imagine some other of our listeners are full of anxiety right now, just listening to that, like not knowing where to be, not planning it out in advance. What do you mean I don't have stuff? Yeah. Where's my car? It's just all different. And that the personality that comes with that is so different. So for all our listeners, they're very anxious right now. You don't have to do that. Exactly. No one's making you do that. Take a few breaths, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I call myself a salesperson, right? I have a career in sales, and Doc and I talk all the time about mastering sales and everything. But the greatest sales failure of my life might have been the year I made a real effort to convince my wife for us to sell everything and move to New Zealand for a year. I was like, let's just get out of the rat race. Let's stop this. And to me, it was like the greatest thing in the world. And hey, we were going to get away. And what are we going to do for work? I don't know. We'll figure something out. I'll become a tour guide. How a tourist becomes a tour guide, I don't really know how that works, but that was in my head something that could totally work. And I was like, let's just do it. Now, we had a kid at the time, so my wife was really a hard no on moving that far away from family. But you talk about the different personalities and the different style of people. My wife thought I had like a mental breakdown. She is like, what is wrong with you? We are not getting rid of everything. We're not, doing this and just leaving. And so Janet, you and I might be cut from more of the same cloth than, I thought at first. But to Doc's point, my wife, complete opposite side of the spectrum, would have never happened. I tried, but I'm just not that good of a salesperson, I guess.
Yeah, I think then speaking about sales, well, it's interesting, letting the client experience the product, right? And then they're, oh my God, I want to continue using it. And that's how
that was my mistake.
How I got my wife into it. Yeah. Because I didn't tell my wife, let's just travel the world for 3 years. I didn't know we were going to do this, right? But then we were in Bali and said, oh my God, this is really nice. And she wanted to keep her apartment. I'd already given mine up. Said, okay, yeah, well, who knows what's going to happen, I thought, after Bali. And why would she have two apartments in Munich when you're in Bali for a few months. That doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, she wasn't so convinced in the beginning either, but now, and then later, after 3 years, it was harder for her to stop traveling. Like I had to convince her then again to sort of slow down and find a place. So it was really interesting how this shifted between her and I.
Oh, yeah. Very, very cool. So let's take a pause here for our sponsors, and then we can hit on this a little bit more.
Hey, y'all. It's the doctor from JB and the Doctor. Just wanted to talk quickly about our 2-on-1 coaching service that we offer, as well as our group coaching program that's also available. As high-performance coaches for service-based professionals and entrepreneurs, we are hyper-focused on improving your presentation and positioning, powering up your productivity, and supercharging your sales. As we all know, people, we're just different, and one size does not fit all. So it's important to work with those that understand this and can tailor their program and training specific to your needs. And that is exactly what we do here at JB and the Doctor. With our Mastery with Science system and approach, we provide both the how and the why, proven by experience and backed by science. So to take advantage of this truly unique approach with the expertise of 2 coaches providing you with the very best of self and business coaching, just check out our website at jbandthedoctor.com/services for more information or to schedule an exploratory phone call. That's jbandthedoctor.com/services.
All right. So Jan, what an amazing background and story. Really unique perspective. I have no doubt gained from living in that many different cultures. I mean, that to me might be the coolest thing about your journey. You haven't even really touched on it, but we started talking just a moment or so about sales. And I know selling is something that you talk about a lot in your coaching, right? And just kind of the best way to sell and how you feel people really ought to get more, I think, in tune with sales. And we have this type of conversation all the time, the doc and I in the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab. So share with us kind of your philosophy around sales, because there are a lot of different philosophies.
Yeah, exactly. So what we do, of course, we have this whole thing where we go into companies and do stress management, all these things, right? And then we don't talk about sales on that side. But then when we work with entrepreneurs or consultants, coaches, then that always is a big conversation. And I think the most essential thing, the most important rule or that methodology that I live by is a sales conversation. There are no sales conversation in my world. There's only coaching conversations. Okay, so as a coach, it isn't like, oh, I sell and then, okay, maybe we can start with coaching after that, but it's always coaching. And just like in any coaching conversation, the goal usually is to find an answer to a question, right? Trying the answer to a question, whatever that may be. Should I quit a job or not? How do I lose 20 pounds? How do I find a new girlfriend? Whatever. There's like some sort of question that somebody lives with and wants to have solved. And the question I want to have solved in the coaching conversation, and we then call it enrollment conversation instead of sales call, just to make a distinction, and is, are we an amazing fit? Right? Are we an amazing fit? Does this person want to do this? That it's not even like, is the person going to do it, but does he or she want to do this work? And do I also want to do this work? And then we explore this. And if, just like in any other coaching conversation, I don't care about the outcome, right? If you come to me and say, oh yeah, my wife and I, we're not sure, should we go to New Zealand or should we stay in Fort Lauderdale? I don't care. Like, do whatever you want to do. Let's find out what's right for you, but I wouldn't cheer you on and say, oh, I hope he says New Zealand. I hope he says New Zealand. Whatever. Like, it's not my business, right? I want to detach myself from that. And the same with that coaching conversation. Is it a yes or a no? I think then the art really and the inner work that needs to be done is to be totally okay with either response and to find a genuine yes or no. And this is our approach. And then we coach. We find the honest, authentic truth of that person through coaching. And then you get like a 1,000% yes person rather than a convinced 20% person that calls the next day, oh, really, actually, I talked to my wife, I don't want to do it, or whatever, it ghosts you and never turns up again, like all the stories that might be happening after a sort of shady or not 100% call, 100% yes call. And so that's really important to us. That's really at the center of the way that we sell or we enroll, how we would call it.
So I absolutely love a number of things you said there, like totally love. For our listeners, I'm going to key in on one thing, which we talk about all the time in the lab, which is I call it, you have to divorce yourself from the results. right? The results, there really only should be one result, and you have a result. And your result is, hey, I want to make sure that we have an amazing, authentic connection. And yes, here, it has to be a perfect fit in marriage. That's the only result that you are looking for. And any other result, whatever the result actually ends up being, doesn't matter outside of that, right? Yeah. So the result itself doesn't matter. It's just, hey, we need to make sure that this is a fit. And what I've always said, Jan, and what I really believe is, if you can give somebody the clarity so they can see, right? They can see exactly what they want, and the confidence to know that, yes, I see it, and that is what I want. That's the only result that matters to us in our conversations with people. So it's all about them. And it doesn't matter if it's a yes or no, because there are tons of people out there that it's 100% or 1,000% perfect fit, right? And I know the doc hates using percentages. That's the scientist and doctor background to him. But I think for this purpose, we can have that conversation. Really, really fantastic nugget for our listeners to drill down on. If you are in the mindset that you need a result, you need this person to say yes or be that fit, and you try to force it, it's not going to work most of the time, right? You're going to have those bad experiences.
Yeah. And I think, like, now that you're saying this, for me, the word power imbalance also comes in, because really, like, if you're saying, oh, I need this person to say yes, there is a very strange power imbalance, and you're giving, like, the potential client, the prospect, however you want to call that person, has a lot of power over you, right? Over your well-being, over your livelihood, or whatever. And coming back to what I said earlier, that's why essentially also at the beginning, it's, to me, so important to cut all the costs, because you don't want to need the client, right? And the lower your costs are, the fewer clients you need, and you can really practice that and embody this detachment from the outcome. If you have a whole ton of costs every month, and you won't be able to eat if you don't close this client, you're not showing up wholeheartedly in a serving manner. It's impossible, and I don't blame anyone for that, because you need that money, and really we don't want to need that money. It's amazing if you get it. And to me also, it's two questions. Is somebody, okay, do you want to do it or not? Yeah. And then I want to do it, but I don't know how. Let's say, like, buying a service or so. I don't know how to afford. Okay, that's another conversation. We can, again, coach through that, find solutions. Maybe we find some, maybe we don't. If we don't, then it's fine too. But that's the first question only is this right? Is this really what you feel is right? What you think is right? However level you make that decision. That's the first bit. And what I said earlier it's funny now, the conversation we had about your wife, like, moving to, so I bring that up like again, like your biggest sales failure that you said.
Stab in my heart.
But have the client experience it, right? So for us, one approach, what we use, and I'm happy to share this openly, just as an inspiration for anybody, we don't do those strategy calls. The many consultants or whoever say, hey, sign up for a 20-minute whatever free consultation or so. In my opinion, I'm not able to, a potential client is not able to experience my work within a 20-minute strategy session. It'll be selling, right? So instead of that, we offer what we call a Kickstarter program. So any client who's interested in working with us, we don't offer any programs, products to them unless we've experienced them for 2 weeks, and they've experienced us for 2 weeks. And over this period of 2 weeks, we coach them. We give them like the full package. How we work with a person. This is now one-on-one work, right? This is not corporate workshops. I don't give workshops for 2 weeks and then. But
Mercedes-Benz is getting a deal, man.
Yeah, exactly. I've been in workshops all day for 2 weeks now. Yeah. So, but they're in a similar way. I'm going to share what I did with them in a minute. So what I did with them, what I did for them and with them. So it wasn't forced. So, okay, Kickstarter program, invite them to experience the work for 2 weeks. And afterwards, we can both make a very good decision. And I know what they're like. I know if I want to work with them or not, because it might turn out, oh, sounds like an amazing fit. And then this person is like, I don't know, doing drugs all day, is alcoholic, is in abusive relationships, and I don't know, eats bats in the free time. It's like, okay, maybe we're not the right fit. Like, this is not working out. It sounded all amazing, but I don't want to be in that relationship. And the same for the other person, because I can tell I'm an amazing coach and these are the results I had, all the testimonials, but I don't know if I'm the right person for him or her. And so this is what everybody has to go through. And then we can talk about what's the right program. After all, what we spoke about in those 2 weeks, should we work for 3 months? Should we work for 6 months, for 12 months? Should we talk once a month or every week or twice a week? I don't know that in a 20-minute stress strategy session. It's impossible to offer the perfect product or service at that time. And this Kickstarter program, in the beginning, we offered it for free. Anybody sort of have like a little conversation, do want to offer that or not? This was while traveling in the early days. And now there's a charge for that because I no longer feel comfortable just giving away 2 weeks of our work, right?
That's a lot.
But
very impressive.
now I feel okay with it. I feel imbalanced, energetic balance, blah blah, all those things. And so should I share what we do with Mercedes and the likes?
Yeah, I do. I want to hear from the doc really quick though. I think the doc might have something. He's been so quiet, and I always get nervous when he gets too quiet.
Oh man, it's like my son when he's quiet. I always knew, what is he up to? And the other day, it's funny now. The other day, it's like I look at my wife. Have you seen Lilas? That's our son.
Where is he? What's he doing?
Oh, haven't seen him. And then he's laying on the sofa, totally relaxed, and cutting up my passport.
Oh God.
You know what he feels about your travel.
Yeah, exactly.
You're done, Dad.
Yeah, I wasn't even mad. It was just, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like out of a movie. Cool. Yeah.
I was taking my biggest takeaway is that you can speed up that 2 weeks by just asking the question up front, do you eat bats?
Yeah.
I think that was your biggest disqualifier.
Yeah.
No, that you said so much. I mean, and I'm not gonna circle back on it because I think we could have a whole nother conversation around a lot of what you spoke.
I don't even know where the bats example came from.
It's a good rule out though.
Yeah, that's a safe one. So tell us a little bit about Mercedes-Benz and the work you do there. Talk to us a little bit about the stress management side of things, because I think for most of our listeners, stress is a very real thing that we all deal with. And juggling that's not always an easy thing. Yeah.
So let's like continue with like the whole sales bit, and then I'm happy to go into the stress thing. So because of course I cannot offer them 2 weeks of my service or something. It's a different thing. But our approach so far with corporate has been to offer those lunch and learn talks, culinary, blah, however they call those things, lunch and beer or. No, lunch and beer, training and beer. And I don't know, depending on the
I don't know. We're operating in the wrong country, Doc. You don't have many lunch and beers over here in the States.
We're not supposed to because, never mind.
I don't know. I'm on board with making that a thing.
Yeah. It really, I've spoken at those. It's then like, what is it called? Lunch and beer and train or something? Beer and learn, not lunch and learn, but beer and learn. And those. Yeah, they have this in the startup world. So when we do things with startups, they want to be cool, right? They don't, lunch and learn. Beer and learn. We're a cool company.
It does sound like our monthly live Q&A we do on Facebook, our Better Business Brewing, where we have a cocktail and discuss them.
That's true.
Yeah. And I think
we're in that world.
Yeah. So I think anybody who wants to get into corporate, this is a good starting point because you they're all looking for speakers also for those things. And it's like a 30 to 60 minute maybe workshop, and they offer it once a month or maybe every 2 weeks, maybe once a week. I don't see that often, but you can just sort of display what you do. You're probably not being paid or very little, but it's not about pay at that point. But they experience what you do. And so then I ask for a conversation with the responsible person and say, okay, was it valuable or not? But they have experienced the full deal, and I treat it as if it was a €5,000 training. It's a proper thing, right? But it's the same idea of having them experience it, and then you can have a conversation. Do we want to continue? Because if I explain to them, we can talk about this and that, and they say, yeah, maybe not. We'll call you back. Yeah, but then you're sort of in the door. I give a foot in the door. Yeah.
You have a contact, they know what you're about, they like you or they don't. People do business with the people they like and they feel comfortable with. The doc call it commonalities, right? Always having a commonality. That's what we look for in people. I like to speak for him. I like to talk, but I totally get it, Jan. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. So that's kind of how you approach larger corporations then.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess the sales or the enrollment conversation, then it's the same, right? To figure out, okay, what is it really that what are we speaking about? And it's not, this is what I want to sell to you, but because I don't know yet. It's the same with a one-on-one person. And then the whole thing starts there again. It's not the yes or no. It doesn't matter which one it is, but to really figure out what's right for them. Yeah. So, and what you said about like stress management, yeah, that's an interesting topic to me personally. And why that is so interesting, I'll take you back. Now we're before the world traveling. Before I had this last job that I quit in order to go traveling. Before that, I was in hotel management. And very, very ambitious, also very successful. I was part of a program like six general managers to be in all of Europe. So in this program, it's super competitive to get in. And I know many people probably relate to this, just working all the time, day and night. And then one morning, I'm going into the hotel. It's a beautiful 5-star hotel, marble lobby, like the whole thing. And I was working in Prague, Czech Republic at the time. And I just collapsed in the middle of that place that one morning. And not only, I feel a little sick, but like physically collapsed in there. And ambulance came, and like the whole, very dramatic. It wasn't like a silent exit. It was a very dramatic moment. And then it was very interesting to me, just like from an internal thing, why this work is so important to me, and this whole way of living and changing my life was, and it sounds almost like in a movie, but this voice told me, or it's like this thought came up, okay, Jan, either you're going to die or something's going to change, and both is better than what you're doing right now. And that just was like, what?
Powerful.
What? Who said that? I thought I was doing amazing. I'm this successful, like up and coming general manager, and have this high position. I've lived in like 9 countries by the age of 27 and all this. And it's like, oh no, I'm not successful at all. So if people say, oh, you were a really successful hotel manager, I must say I wasn't. I was very unsuccessful. Right? A successful hotel manager doesn't collapse in the middle of the lobby. That's in my new definition of success. That isn't part of this thing. And so I really, really got interested in the whole personal development world and personal growth, and coaching eventually. And so stress management, and people are really stressed out and on the edge of burnout, that is really touching to me, because I can relate to it so much.
So you come in and you talk about burnout. I mean, have any of these companies ever been concerned, like, oh, here was a great employee that literally dealt with burnout, and then he left his company. Now we're going to have him come in and talk to all our employees, and they're all going to want to leave. Has that ever come up as a fear?
No, I've never heard this. It's more like, okay, yeah, you know what you're talking about.
Fear.
Yeah, it's not, maybe that's where the authentic 100% no came from. No, it's more that they appreciate, okay, somebody who knows what he's talking about, because some psychologists, so as much as they know theoretically, may have never felt what a panic attack feels like, or may have never have all these weird feelings that you get during burnout. And also when I speak about burnout, I think there's inflationary use of that term, because it's not somebody said, oh, I'm so burned out, I really need a glass of wine to wind down tonight. No, that's not burnout. You're just stressed. You did something you didn't enjoy during the day, but you'll be fine. But people who are like have high stress level on the edge of burnout, it's no longer a matter of having a bubble bath tonight and then everything is fine. It really is more severe than that. And I don't want anybody to get there. Yeah.
So, it's always an interesting thing, because there's, the ability to be empathetic, which the doc talks about all the time. But arguably, if you've never experienced something, you really can't appreciate what somebody is truly going through. And I have personal experience with anxiety and panic attacks when I was younger, and I thought I was like on top of the world. And then very ordinary things for me, very normal things for me, became incredibly difficult to do, where I thought I was dying, doing this stuff that I would normally have, would enjoy. And so I very much appreciate that. Doc, what do you got? I know you're like leaning forward, like you want to say something so badly right now.
Well, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier too. I think
bats
about not all people being alike, and not one size fitting all, because there's so many different ways people display these things. And we like to compare them by the extremes of it a lot of times. So there could be a physical component to it, which is going to show up in a certain way that maybe someone else is dealing with it even in a more extreme, but doesn't have that physical component. So you would never know. And we see that with disabilities a lot too, right? most of the people that are dealing with disabilities that don't look like they don't have a disability get ignored because they don't present in a way that you're expecting them to look. And I think the same thing happens with like kind of burnout and stress and dealing with those things. Is we have this idea that it's supposed to look a certain way, but the reality is everyone deals with things different. And what works for one person doesn't always work for another person. So the same thing with treatment, right? So treating it one way doesn't always work the same for everybody because they're going through it in different ways. I think we just have to be really aware that, you know, people are unique. While we share a lot of the same traits, underneath there's a lot of individualities that make a big difference.
Yeah, 100%. And like in terms of the stress and this, maybe if somebody's interested in like sort of assessing, I don't know if you can assess the stress level in that way, but it's very subjective. But what I love to start with people also is to just start being familiar with what stress feels like for you, because I feel to many of us it's just what could be a stress symptom is just normal part of life, right? Okay, it could be stress from something, or back pain. It's just normal with back pain, or trouble falling asleep, and it's just everybody takes CBD oils. It's just like as if it was a normal thing, but it sort of isn't, right? And or it's just normal to have a glass of wine, and maybe that's another like behavioral dimension, or like, you know, like behavioral, emotional, mental, and physical. And I find this very important to be very honest with yourself. Is this a coping mechanism somewhere, or is this a stress symptom, right? And I always like to say, it's funny when my older son, the 5-year-old, he loves to watch animal documentaries. All right, then okay, there's this narrator and says, "Oh, that's the wolf, and he's walking through the forest, and he's looking for prey or something." And if that was done about humans, it wouldn't be saying, "Oh, there's the human taking CBD oil before going to sleep, having a glass of wine." It isn't like that's us in our natural habitat doing all that stuff, right? That there's something to look at already.
And it brings up a really interesting point. I mean, if we are living with this stress and we've been living with it for a long time, do we even know we're living with it? Doc, I got to imagine for a lot of us, and you've probably seen this in therapy, we're not even aware of the stress that we're carrying most of the time. I'm guessing.
We're not aware of most of the things we do because it's become autopilot, right? Like everything is thoughts and behaviors, and every thought leads to a behavior. And you know, they're called habits, they're called routines, they're called all different things, but they're really just all behaviors. And that's no different. Stress in our level that we accustom ourselves to it is just how we let it behave. We trained ourselves to handle that. So you might not notice that stress because you're just doing it every day, and it becomes like brushing your teeth. So getting that insight, getting that awareness is a big part of it. And that's the only way you can actually make a lot of these changes, because our brain defaults right back to what we do. So if you're used to doing something and you try to change it for a very short term, the second you stop putting that energy towards changing that, it's going to default right back to what it knows. That's just the way our brain works. Yeah. So that's why it becomes difficult to make these changes, to identify these things. And there's that fear too. I mean, 90% of the people that go to the hospital thinking they're having a heart attack is stress. So, I mean, stress plays a big role in us, and we don't always identify how it does. It's just because it shows up in so many different ways for so many different people.
Yeah. And to me personally, also at that time, you know, people, when I collapsed there, and this was like my body reacting in that way, right? And people asking, "Oh, didn't you see this coming? Oh my God, what happened?" And then first I said, "Yeah, I don't know. So weird, right? Like one day to the other." And then, you know, I was put into this clinic for 2 months and to recover. And then you have a lot of time, you start reflecting, or I started reflecting, it's like, oh my God, like, yeah, really, during my studies, there were certain things already showing up, this feeling of anxiety or whatever there was. And then, oh yeah, lately, I really have been drinking way more than usual. And also by myself. Usually I don't drink by myself, but I really started doing this a few months ago. Or I don't even know when I talked to my parents for the last time. It was months ago, literally. And just things like that. That, as you say, it becomes routine. You don't call them one day, and just becomes normal, not talking to your parents anymore. And whereas usually that's what you do. Yeah, and that's how I experienced it as well. Yeah, and it was just a funny story there too. Then after I went back from Czech Republic to Germany, and as you said, at JB, it was difficult to do certain things when you were having those panic attacks. So, and for me as well, it was. I would get panic attacks on the bus, in the supermarket, while driving. I was just like, oh my God, I'm like a child. I cannot do all the adult stuff anymore. I like care for myself and buy stuff or go somewhere. And then my dad and his wife, so my parents are divorced, and his wife, they had booked this fasting retreat where you don't eat for a week or so, right? It's like whatever to clean your body. And looking like, what are they doing over there in Europe? Yeah, so
that's okay.
It's not.
I like the lunch and beers concept.
Yeah.
But the fast for a week, you lost me, man.
Yeah, so it's the fast and beer. Like you only drink beer for a week.
Hey, we could sign up for that one. Doc and I might be interested.
And so that's the thing here, right? People don't, especially during change of the season, spring and fall or so, then I don't know, whatever, they do this. And so I said, okay, I have to come. I don't want to come. This is weird. Those are all hippies and I hate it. But I understand. I realize that I'm like a baby. I cannot be on my own. Okay, I come with them. And so I'm there, this like super successful hotel manager sitting in my room, of course, eating, because I don't do that weird hippie shit. So I'm eating, I'm cooking, and I'm on my high horse. I'm, oh my God, I hope this week is over soon because I really need to get back to work because I got things to do, right? With a busy year ahead of me. I just really need to recover quickly and get back. And I really don't want to deal with all those weird people walking over the meadow in the morning with their naked feet and doing tea ceremony. And then after a few days, still having panic attacks and feeling miserable, I realized, oh my God, like I'm the most miserable person in this whole retreat center, right? And I thought I'm the most successful. I think I have it figured out. And all these long-haired weirdos, they're smiling all day and they do 10K runs without having eaten for 3 days. And they do all sorts of stuff and they're laughing and they're happy and they're in a good mood. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing something, like I'm missing something here. Success. And then that also got me really into this whole conversation. What does success mean? Because I thought I had been successful and I thought, oh no, I'm not. I'm very unsuccessful. And these people have something that I don't. And now I want to figure out what that is. And that really got me really into this journey that week at the retreat center. Yeah.
Speaking of missing something, our listeners are missing something. And I heard you have a giveaway for them.
Yeah. That was smooth.
Segue.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa. Yes. So anybody interested in the earlier part of the conversation about the sales, and I know entrepreneurs will be, and our approach to sales, we have the 10 golden rules of ethical enrollment. That's how we call it. And it's an ebook giving our 10 most precious rules, or that we work by in the whole client creation process. Happy to give that away.
That sounds awesome.
Of course, you can find the information in the show notes.
Yeah, Jan, this was man, what a conversation. I really cool to have you on. I mean, what a fresh perspective. Your background, the story, the work that you and your wife do, it's really just pretty incredible. And allow me to be the first here, I guess, on the podcast here that we're, since we started recording. Just congratulations. A father of a second child here recently. So congratulations to you and your wife. And thank you so much for joining us. Really, really love the conversation.
Thank you so much for the kind words. No, same here. I really enjoyed being with you too.
Thanks for joining us.
Doc, that was a conversation that traveled to a lot of places.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. You see, you're not the only one with a bad joke or two around.
But I'm kind of jealous of that traveling. I do want to definitely go to a lot of, I think the Americans in the international community, I see one of the big differences with that is because our country is so big, we don't travel as much country to country. And we're only bordered by 2. Where in Europe, there's so many countries that you can get to in hours that it's just more natural to travel between countries there. So I think it's something unique. It's something that we miss here.
Yeah, but I'm not a geography buff, but I'm pretty sure Bali and Hong Kong are not part of the Europe.
No, but the mindset that comes with it, that being able to travel so easily through other countries where it becomes like a normal thing to do, where here we don't have that same, like the idea of us traveling to another country is like a big event.
Well, we live in a big country. So, that kind of pops up when I talk to people and share my background. I'm like, from outside of New York to Texas to California, San Francisco Bay Area to South Florida, people are like, oh, you've lived all over. And, arguably you could say, hey, that could be a dozen different countries across Europe. it's similar geography wise.
If you speak to most people in this country, they don't really even travel many states. And like, if you ask people how many states have they been to, it's going to be a very few, very low number, is because it is something we don't even do. It's also, a lot of stuff different. Vacation hours, they get 2 to 4 weeks. We barely get 2.
I will say this. You talk about New York City is a very different country than Central Texas, right? Or Dallas, or versus Absolutely, San Francisco versus Miami area, right? You're talking about, they might as well be different countries because culturally, wildly different.
It was interesting. I was working with a couple that was from Europe, and they are here in the States, and they just got back from their vacation. They took a few weeks and traveled to like 18 different states. And I can't think of the last time I've seen, talk to someone from this country that was able to do kind of vacations like that. So it's just a very unique difference, and it's not a good or bad. It's not a right or wrong. It's just the unique differences that we see of what we're used to, right? What we get accustomed to.
What was your biggest takeaway from the conversation? If you had just one to key in on, what would it be?
That I like these beer and lunches. I'm not so sure about the not eating ones, but I'm thinking this weekend I'm going to do a beer and chicken wing retreat and watch some football.
That sounds pretty good. Well, I'm going to be a little more boring, but I will say, if I were to drill down to one word that I think kind of captured almost all my takeaways, it would be perspective. And you've heard me talk about perspective, Doc. Our listeners, people in the lab have heard me talk perspective all the time. But, think about the perspective that Jan's developed, not just from his travels, but from his experiences. And this is everything that we speak about. It really, to me, is why we do this podcast, right? It's to capture the different perspectives and those experiences that you can bring into your business, and how that creates the business around you, because a business is always a creation of you, or you and your partnership, so on and so forth. So to me, perspective, tremendous perspective, very unique perspective, really pretty cool conversation. I said I enjoyed it. I mean it. So I'm glad we had Jan on, and look forward to hearing back from our listeners what their thoughts were on it.
Yes, we definitely want to hear your takeaways. In the meantime, you know where to find us on all our social media handles at JB and the Doctor. We have our website at jbandthedoctor.com, where you can get information on everything we've talked about from here and before. I'm going to go eat some chicken wings and drink some beer.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Count me in. Let's go do it.
Sounds like a plan. We're out.
JB out.
Peace out, yeah.